Hello, friends, and welcome back to the show. Today, I was joined in the studio by Thor himself, Mr. Noah Syndergaard, a professional Major League Baseball pitcher, a former All-Star, currently a free agent, but he's played for the Mets, Los Angeles Angels, and his dream team, the Dodgers. And you can expect to learn his daily routines. What is Thor currently doing for nutrition, supplementation, training, how he is working on overcoming his injuries using animal-based framework and holistic health routines, how to deal and how he did deal with high-pressure moments on the mound, what it's like being a pro superstar with all of the pressure of the media and eyeballs on you, going to war with vegans on social media, and whether he's going to return to pro baseball or pursue another passion project. So a fascinating bunch of insights from a guy that transcended the sports realm and achieved some of the greatest accolades a person can, and all of that comes with it. So I think you're going to enjoy this one. Without further ado, let's get into it with Noah Syndergaard. Noah, welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for making the drive up. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. Anytime.
Now, if we've got some baseball fans watching, they might recognize you as Thor. You've played a pretty good career in MLB, Major League Baseball. But for those who don't, take us on a little bit of a journey. Tell us about your career in baseball, how it started, where you went, what you accomplished, and all of the juicy stuff. Wherever it takes us, we'll go.
All right, cool. So I was drafted in 2010 by the Toronto Blue Jays. I was with them in their minor league system for 2 years. Then I got traded to the Mets at the end of 2012. I didn't make my big league debut until 2015, and I thought I was a pretty good pitcher for up until 2019. And then 2020, COVID struck, and I had Tommy John surgery around that same time, March of 2020. That's when I went on this. I've always been like a really health-oriented guy, and then I really went on this journey. The house I was renting for spring training, I basically turned into a recovery lounge. I got a Morosco Forge, ice plunge, hyperbaric chamber, infrared saunas. Now I've recently upgraded to just a dry barrel sauna. Had a red light bed. I live next to the beach, so I do a lot of grounding, sunlight. Hired a personal chef. My 3 best friends were there with me, so there's a lot of camaraderie and brotherhood there. And then around month 15 of my rehab, because Tommy John rehab is around.
What is a Tommy John surgery?
It's a UCL reconstruction. So there's a ligament in your elbow. It's pretty basic. A lot of pitchers go through it. But then I decided that I didn't really like my delivery, my mechanics, the way I threw. And so I tried to reinvent myself during that time. And around month 15, I had a setback where some surgeons thought that I'd blown out again. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. Another thing I should add too, I had a blood flow restriction device as well. I'm really huge into that.
That's the cuffs. Yeah, they pump up and yeah.
Yep. All right, so month 15, I had a setback, and I was pretty concerned. And then the medical staff basically threw the kitchen sink at this. Stem cells from my hip. I did PRP. I did 30 sessions in a hard shell chamber or hard shell hyperbaric chamber. And then I did about a 6-week rehab. I came back. I was fine. I needed to come back to show that I was healthy because I was going to be a free agent at the end of 2021. Came back for 2 innings. I'm normally like a 99, 100 mile an hour thrower. And I was like maybe 95, 96. I was up to 98 before I had my setback, and I felt really good. And then that off season, I felt like my agent and I felt like we needed to take a break from New York because it is a kind of a gauntlet playing up there. I mean, the saying is if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Make it anywhere, baby.
So I signed with the Angels for the 2022 season, and I did pretty well. It just wasn't the same. I had a lot of coaches tinker with my mechanics. And then you just look at a video of me back in the day to a video of me now, there's some blatant discrepancies in my delivery. So then in 2000, the Angels were not good at all that year. And so starting pitching during the trade deadline, which we've seen this past year, is at a premium. So I was traded to the Philadelphia Phillies, and again, started to get tinkered with a little bit. Our coaches tell me one thing, other coaches tell me the other thing. But I made it work for the most part. We went to the World Series, got to play in the World Series again. Unfortunately, lost to the Astros. And then I took basically 2 days off, and I went to this premier baseball training facility in Charlotte, North Carolina, called Shred Athletics. And they have an immaculate facility. Just implored their knowledge and wisdom, like what I should do to get back to me. They told me one thing, and then after that, I went to this place called Driveline in Arizona, and then they told me a completely other thing. And so I decided to go with the Driveline program. And and then I just mentioned after that, I went to Park City, Utah. Can't remember the doctor's name right now off the top of my head, but I did a full body stem cell makeover where they basically take like 4 different types of stem cells, 3 from your own body and then exosomes as well. And they inject it in every joint in your body, including your hair, your face, and your dick.
Damn.
But it was just, I mean, I was like, all right, I'm not going to leave that out. Yeah. Whatever. And then, so yeah, I've done a lot of interesting body biohacking techniques. And then I signed with the Dodgers, which has been my dream ever since I stepped foot on a baseball field, really, or ever since I stepped foot on Dodger Stadium for the first time. I've always competed really well there. I don't think I've ever had a bad game there. It's just the atmosphere. They have the best sound system in the game, and like I like for extra conditioning, I call it power shagging, which I go into like center field and pretend like I'm an outfielder and just catch fly balls during batting practice, and like sound system's always bumping. They're playing good music, and every ball that I catch, I throw into the stands. And
right on.
So
it's good vibes.
They have a great fan base. So I signed with the Dodgers, and immediately, like December 27th or 28th, I think is when it was, I went to Arizona and started working with their coaching staff. And I mean, I got nothing against them or whatever, but there was just some of their pitching coaches were having me do things that just probably sent me more in the wrong direction. And I believed that it was the right direction. And so for 3 months straight, I was doing really intensive like drill work. So where like I got stuck moving into this position, throwing a baseball. And now I'm to the point right now where I'm like, I don't even know. It was almost like a minor form of the yips, sort of.
Yeah, right.
Like, so now, I mean, there wasn't really any big league jobs available for me this year, and I wasn't really interested in playing in the minor leagues, especially if I'm not like, if I don't feel right. Like last year, like when I was with the Dodgers, like I never felt like I was trying to throw the ball like 100%. It'd only come out at like 80%. It was a very weird feeling. And then I ended up getting traded to the Guardians, and I was with them for about a month, and I was kind of trending upwards, feeling a little better in my delivery. And it's just kind of ironic. My last start in the big leagues was against the Toronto Blue Jays, with the team that drafted me. And I was one pitch away from having a pretty good start. Gave up a 2-run home run in the last inning, and I gave up like 5 total runs. And I was pretty heated. So I never blow up in the dugout. I always go into like the tunnel.
Okay.
And I absolutely destroyed a stationary bike with a chair. And we ended up winning the game. And the pitching coach calls me into the Terry Francona's office, and I was just like, I don't know, crap, am I in trouble for doing that? Because they had a lot of young pitchers as well, and I'm sure, like, I mean, I got no issue with somebody showing some emotion as long as you do it. Like, you're not destroying Gatorade bottles or Gatorade coolers in the dugout for the cameras to see.
Yeah, right.
So I thought they were going to approach me about that, but it was like, no, like we gotta DFA you, which means designated for assignment, which means you get taken off the 40-man, which allows for another team to potentially pick you up. And that never happened. Then I got released. So I'm like, wow, it just kind of put things in perspective for me. Like I went from what I thought being one of the best pitchers on the planet to now I'm being released. But it's really taught me a lot, kind of brought me back down to earth. And now I'm still in training, but I just wasn't interested in going to AAA and eating Bob Evans at midnight and long bus trips and getting staph infections because of the facilities in the minor leagues. Or even if like you're like when I did like I was really struggling last year with the Dodgers, and they put me on like the Fan MIL, which is basically like they blamed it on a blister on my finger, but that wasn't really affecting me. I was just like struggling. Just I had a time or an opportunity to get my head above water. So I was making rehab starts, and I did a rehab start in Oklahoma City, which is like the AAA home base for the Dodgers. And like that facility, it was not that good on me. For somebody that loves cold plunges and taking care of themselves, like it was that. So that's just kind of the experience in the minor leagues. And so I just wasn't interested in doing that, especially if I'm not feeling like myself. So I just used this as an opportunity to take the year off, do things that I haven't done in 15 years for the first time in 15 years. I'm home, so I get to spend a lot more time with my family and friends, and just kind of reinvent myself. And what I do, I mean, I work with a guy back home for a little bit, but for the most part, I'll just grab a bag of balls and I'll go to a random park, and I'll bring all my water bags and my kettlebells, and I'll just kind of do a little self exploration and like throw and be by myself and be like, all right, that felt pretty normal. And like I will send videos to my dad, and he's like, my parents are sometimes my harshest critic. Like I just bought a new house in Westlake, and I hired some designers, and I thought for sure my mom was going to come over and just pick it apart. And she's like, oh no, she actually did a really good job. And then I'll send videos of me throwing to my dad, and I'll feel really good about it. And he's like, no, that's not it. And then finally I got some positive criticism the other day, and I was like, wow, this is actually, I felt like a normal throwing session. Like I think there's two types of pitchers. There's very rotational pitchers. I think those are more for like people that are like smaller pitchers that have to generate power. Whereas I'm 6'7", 250, so I'm very linear. I want to use my height as an advantage. So I want to be upright and tall as much as possible. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing now. And I'm very honored to be here and on this podcast and sharing my story. And I mean, I don't need any excuse to ever come down to Austin. I wish Dallas is more. Yeah, right. Like there's like one restaurant in Dallas called Origin that's seed oil free, all grass fed, and I wear it out. I've been going there for the last 9 years now, and so I'm just going to use this as kind of like a health retreat. Go to the well, go to picnic. I'm going to Dietary tomorrow night, and then to the Comedy Mothership afterwards.
Oh, dude, you're doing all the things. Yeah, that's an epic.
Maybe
trip.
Go look at some. I've heard like the largest bat colony in the world is in Austin, so maybe I'll go check that out.
Yeah, they come out at sunset. You got to get into Barton Springs. You said you were hitting up On It Gym, and it's the spot, man. It's a good spot for that.
You guys got the sauna and cold plunge here. That was what I was going to the On It Gym for. It's just I love the sauna and the blue cubes that they have there.
We're gonna feast after this and eat some testicles and sweat a little bit.
Okay.
This is
I've never had that before, but I'll give it a shot. Love what you guys do.
Yeah, man. It's really cool to hear your story. There's so much I want to dive into there, because just pressure, the pressure of like having to be a high performer, and the sounding like all the stuff that you've thrown at your healing and recovery requires a sense of stability and routine, and the amount of moving around and being told this by this person and this by this person, it must be like really destabilizing in that. And I want to come back to the diet journey and how you've really used food too. But I'm really curious, because I think it's very like fresh. It's what you're in. You said I'm reinventing myself. I always think about this with high performers. Like you said, this is the first time in how many years? 15 years? 15 years. Where you've just kind of like got no plan really, other than just let me work on myself. A lot of our identity gets wrapped up in what we do, right? And you're Thor. You're the pitcher. You're famous, and all of a sudden it's like the rug is being pulled from under your feet. How do you tackle that mentally? Like, how do you reinvent yourself? Has it been challenging, or is it hopeful for you? What's that like?
It is pretty challenging, because during the season, you're so routine oriented. Like there's a lot of structure. Like for the most part, like if we have a night game, like I'll go to the field around 1:00, and the game's over around 10:30. But like being in the dugout, the lights are very stimulating. There's even if like starting pitchers only throw once every 5 days. So even if I'm not like pitching, it's still like, there's not a lot of down regulation. So it takes me, like, we get home, take me a good bit to down regulate, get parasympathetic. So I was starting like a routine of taking magnesium salt baths, putting on my blue light blockers, trying to limit red light or blue light, sorry. So I love the freedom that I have now, but also sometimes it's like too much freedom is hard. So like I'm also like trying to establish a different routine, and I'm also like kind of like my own corporation right now. Whereas like when you're with a team, like you have a lot of support from like the medical staff, the strength staff. Now I'm responsible for doing it on my own, and like I have a really good strength coach that writes my programs, but it's like in terms of like recovery, doing like soft tissue work, like it's all on me. And like also like different times throughout the day, like I'll like it's very sporadic. Like I'm also like doing work around the house. I have to work like it's more like adult responsibilities that I'm trying to like navigate around. And I mean, just I'm a big into meditation, breath work. Like I'll wake up and like sometimes I'll start with this, or sometimes I'll start with something else. And like I think it's like I'll wake up and either do like Wim Hof breath work, or I'll do just like some 4-7-8 breathing or some kind of mindfulness meditation. But I try to like keep it pretty structured in the sense like, okay, I got to get my sunlight, I got to get my breath work, I got to get some good exercise in, like, or either do some yoga, get my cold plunging in, and then like I can kind of start with the duties of the day.
Yeah, it's a big Pandora's box, and it's a fascinating one. I can tell you're passionate about it, but once you start to peel the layers, you're like, oh, there's so much to learn. And it seems like you found a lot of the really big hammers to throw at recovery and performance. But is it fair to say that a lot of that stuff was found somewhat reactively to like, oh shit, I'm injured, what are we going to do to get back to health? And I'm curious if you knew then what you know now, do you think you could have potentially like avoided injury and prolonged your career and performed at a higher level?
I don't think so. I think like I also had like everybody has like preliminary like elbow MRIs as a pitcher, just to like you as time goes on in the season, like you'll see updates of like starters or pitchers come out for like forearm tightness, and everyone's like, oh shit, yeah, you get an MRI, and then like most of the time it comes back fine. Sometimes it does not. So I've had a surgeon tell me like after one of those little flare-ups, like, oh, I'd be surprised if you ever had any elbow issues. But even like before I had like Tommy John surgery, I was still into like eating right, but just in different ways. It's evolved and adapted in many different ways. Like there was a time in 2016 when I was an all-star, like I was super into like going to this place in New York called Juice Press and just loading up on a bunch of juices. And now I think that's like dog shit. So, so it's like, I've always had like my North Star has been directed towards health and wellness, but I've just learned a lot of new things. But I don't really know if it's like, what have kept me healthier and avoiding like Tommy John. Because even when I had Tommy John, I was like, I wouldn't say I was like pumped, but I was like optimistic. I'm like, okay. Because it was like in the first time in however long, like, so the off season's only like 3 to 4 months. You don't really have a lot of time to like address it, like certain issues, like maybe you have like a mobility issue in your hips or like in your T-spine, or you really want to gain some athleticism and like strength and power and speed. There's not a whole lot of time in the off season to do that, because like if you go all the way to playoffs or World Series, like then you have that ends typically the beginning of November, late October, and then most guys would take like a month off, and then December rolls around. You might train for 2 or 3 weeks, and then Christmas kind of derails everything, and then by the time January rolls around, you got 1 month until you report for spring training. So your training has to shift to like more. Like you're still training hard, but it's more like recovery, and it's a different type of phase in your training. So I was pumped, because I'm like, never have I had 12 to 18 months, which is the typical Tommy John rehab, to address things that I wanted to address. And that was, but I'm like, man, really wish I traded my left nut right now to go back to and just do exactly what I was doing and not try to like reinvent myself.
Yeah. I feel you, dude. I feel you. When did you become aware of, like, as you said, back at a certain time, like, even though health has always been the endeavor and we have to stumble towards it to find what really works for us. And, you know, you have stints, and especially like the pressure now from the press and things like that, game changers, athletes should be vegan and all of that stuff. And you've taken a radical stance of going more down this animal-based, ancestral, nose to tail. When did that come into your awareness? And what did you notice when you started to adopt that way of eating?
So I don't know if we can put this in like the video or whatever, but like I was a fat kid when I wouldn't say fat. I was chubby, super bashful. My mom used to have to like order food for me at restaurants, and like but now I've like just like evolved into like somebody else. I don't know. But yeah, like there was you look at Noah Syndergaard high school yearbook, and you see like this husky kid, and now I've like evolved into this Thor persona.
A late bloomer, as I've heard you call it.
Yeah. And I just remember my dad taking me to the YMCA, and that's when we were at a Chili's one time, and instead of ordering a Coke, I was like, maybe I'll just have water. And like that's probably when it like all shifted. And it's just like I learned new stuff every day about like eating nose to tail. Like, but the basics right now are like my pillars are just like absolutely no seed oils and eating like the highest quality meat and implementing organs in some form or fashion. Like I'm not really into like the raw bull testicle yet, but I'll try anything once. But the way I would do raw liver is I would I'd take it frozen and chop it up into little cubes and just fork it down like it's a multivitamin.
Yeah.
And I feel great.
Yeah. And that feeling is believing, man. If you feel good and you're dealing with inflammation and helping recovery and performance, then that's the testament. Yeah. When you start doing this stuff and you start to, garner some attention from the press and people saying like this crazy diet that you're doing and things like that, did your teammates think you were crazy? Did you get much pushback and banter from the locker room in terms of like, what are you doing, man?
A little bit, yeah. They do think there's some that have like adopted, very little that I've started to adopt my way, just because like I walk in like Clayton Kershaw, for example, like he's like would commend me. It's like you do so much and like you're never sore and you never really get tired. So there's some that have adopted it and some that just they can't really get past, like they've been so stuck in their ways. There's no breaking through those walls to make a change.
Take me through, like, at the peak of your career, take me through a day in the life, because I think people don't really understand what it takes to perform at such a high level. And they might even make the mistake, especially if they're not such a big baseball fan, they might make the mistake of like, oh, you just, you go out there and you throw a few balls. Like, how hard must you be training for that? And I've dove into this a little bit in terms of just how structured and how energy demanding it is. I think it'd be really cool for people to hear just how much kind of pressure and stress there is on the body there in order to perform at that level.
Okay, well, I'll try to. So I guess the peak of my career would be in 2016 when I was an all-star, but I was not. I mean, I would do like some meal prep from different companies. That's when I was really into juice press. But I was also 25 years old living in New York, so I was a single guy, so I'd go out and have a good time. And but still, I think just my youth, I could go out and go to bars all night and then come home or come back, and then the next day I would be completely fine. But now I made
of magic and rubber in those days, right? Just snap right back.
Yeah. Now I wouldn't be able to do that, and that's totally fine. Like I prefer, like I actually just put some grounding sheets on my bed, and I have like this. It looks like a mosquito net, but it's a Faraday. Yeah, and it's like the best night's sleep I've ever had. I'd rather much look forward to that, waking up, doing my breath work, cold plunging, making a sick pour over with some ghee, and like I bought this. Do you guys have Central Market down here? You got the HEB Central Market?
No.
It's like
we do.
It's like HEB on steroids.
Okay.
Like they have like the best stuff. So I get like this ghee butter it's infused with cinnamon ashwagandha, and I'll make like a sick pour over, and I'll drink that most of the evening, most of the morning. Sit in my backyard. And what I forgot about Texas in the middle of the summer is everything that's flying wants to sting you. So I've been I've been on an all-out war against the wasp and hornets in my backyard right now, trying to just enjoy my coffee, warming up in the sun after doing the cold plunge. And I'll just be out there, maybe throwing a podcast, and I'll just hang out for most of the morning, and then go to the gym, or I'll go throw and then go to the gym, and then just chill for the rest of the afternoon or evening.
My wife and I were laughing the other day because she was down with her hands in the dirt. She's checking on her garden. She's like, you know what? One day you're like all cool and young and hip, and then the next thing you're digging in the dirt and seeing how many carrots you've got going for you. Like one day you're on top of the world partying in New York, bouncing back for 6 a.m. training the next day, and then here we are, like overnight, seemingly we're fitting our Faraday cage and our grounded bed sheets, man. But that's part of the evolution, right?
Priorities
you change
and,
priorities.
The priorities and passions have definitely changed in the last couple of years.
For sure. I want to come back. And I'm really curious as well about the mindset that it requires to operate in high pressure situations. And I think, standing on the pitcher's mound, like when it's coming down to the wire in a game, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure, especially when eyeballs are on you too. Like the press, everything's riding on this, progressing in the World Series, whatever you want to, whatever you want to bring up there. But what did you do to cope? Like, did you have strategies in the moment? Did you have routines or rituals that really kept you grounded? How did you handle like those peak experiences where like the lights are on, all eyes are on you, and you're like, oh shit. Like, what was that like?
I think when I was younger, especially 2015 and 2016, I just relied off pure ignorance and being super naive. Like, it was just, I think back on it, I'm like, 25, 26-year-old me is laughing at 31-year-old me, because now, like, I mean, we were talking about it before, like, there was a moment in 2018 where we were like taking a short plane trip to play in the Little League Classic and hit a patch of turbulence, and now it like brought to this realization of like flying, like we're in this Pringles can flying through like these unpredictable atmospheres, and it just brought this realization to me. And now it's like the mind is such a powerful tool, and it worked for me so good then, but I just became so aware in the last couple years that it's like worked against me. And then like when I did the 30 hard shell hyperbaric chamber sessions, like it was like it takes 10 minutes to get to pressure, and if you want it out, it takes 10 minutes to get you out. There was one time where I got to pressure, and it was only when I got to pressure is when I started like bugging out. There's one time I'm like, all right, you got to get me out of here. You got to get me out of here. And then I like basically like, sorry, I said to myself, stop being a pussy, Noah. And I was fine. But like, it's still every single, like, I don't know, like the mind, like it incorporated like, oh, hyperbaric chamber, bad. Like, so it, like, I don't know how I was able to gut it out for 30 sessions, but I did. But I'd go from terror for the first 30 minutes, because it's a 2-hour long session. I'd go from terror for the first 30 minutes to the end of it. I was like watching, my show would be to watch Friends, and then 2.5 Men would come on, and I'd go from like terror to straight laughter, and I'd be completely fine. And then I'd walk from what was on 33rd Street in New York, 31st, 30th, whatever it was, and I'd walk the rest of the entire way home to Soho. But then there's times in 2019 where I had some really good games, and I had some of the worst games of my life, but I was still like throwing 99 to 100 miles an hour. And then the cameras would catch me in the dugout, and I'd be either doing like this, it's called the wide peripheral gaze, where like you look at one thing and you try to look at everything as well.
Yeah.
So like I would look at the top of the foul pole and try to like really zone in on the foul pole, but also see all the surroundings, and it would really center me. And then I would also do like, or they'd catch me closing my eyes and doing rounds of box breathing in between half innings, because like it wasn't necessarily that I felt the pressure. It was like you have like starting pitchers, you're in there for at least 6-7 innings, hopefully. So it's like a lot of little sprints within one marathon of the game. So I was just trying to like keep my focus. And there's times where like I'd always get nervous before games, and I was like, oh, I just want to know what the result's going to be. Like, I just want this to be over sometimes. And then like when I'm third or fourth inning is like when you really reach like that flow state, and then I'm like, okay, like I'm really like, depending on how I'm pitching, I'm like, okay, I'm really like into this now. Like I really love competing and playing this game.
Yeah, man, the mind is such a tool, and it can really work for us or against us, right? You know, we were talking off air a little bit how you're dabbling in some golf these days, and it's a similar kind of thing, because I'm sure with pitching and with golf, if you have a bad shot or you have a bad pitch, like, and you've got to do another one, like how do you just get that one out of your mind? How do you not let it define the next one? And if there's two bad in a row, like how do you not start spiraling then? And the negative chatter comes up. Like I wondered like your journey of meditation and how long you've been doing that. That really helped me with some of that stuff, is like, oh, I can hear the thoughts and the chatter and I can let it go and I can refocus on what's important. Doesn't matter that the last pitch was a bad pitch, like eyes back on the target, step up, knock it out the park. But it's easier said than done. And I'm sure it's much easier said than done when you've got 10,000 fans screaming at you and the cameras on you and the critics on Twitter or wherever else they're at, because it's just a lot of pressure, man.
I guess everyone has like their own little techniques. A lot of pitchers would like brush the rubber off and kind of like use it as like,
it's like a reset,
clean slate kind of thing. Others, you watch a lot of elite athletes, pitchers, tennis players, golfers, they take just a deep breath. I think using the breath to recenter yourself is super crucial and a very important tool. And then you learn over time, like, okay, like you threw one bad pitch. It doesn't define the next pitch. It's like how you react to that.
Yeah. And then there's not just the pressure of the performance itself and showing up and living up to your own expectations and stuff. There's the pressure that's applied by media, and like our culture loves sports and they get really invested and they want you to win. And I'm sure you might be familiar with the quote, the man in the arena, right? It's not the critic who counts. It's the man in the arena with his face marred by dust and blood. Like he's the one that's playing the game, not the critic shouting, hey, you should have done better. But you're going to receive that. It comes with the territory of being a professional athlete, right? You're going to receive the armchair quarterbacking of like, you suck, man, you should do better. How have you dealt with haters along the way? How have you dealt with vocal people that have, attacked you, put you down?
Well, I have social media, but I don't keep any of the apps on my phone. Like if I re-download Instagram to like post a story, I have engaged with them before, and you might feel better for like 2 seconds, because I've noticed on social media, a lot of people, when they talk shit, they can't use the proper form of your and you are.
So you can like do the little correction.
And or else I might even get a little more hostile than that. And like you might feel better for a second, and then you're like, oh shit, I just brought myself down to their level, and they got a reaction out of me, which is exactly what they wanted. So I've definitely done that before, but I've learned that it's not gonna resolve anything. And so I don't keep social media on my phone. If I need to post something, I haven't been posting really anything. Yeah. And what I've noticed, like I started a book club during COVID because I was like, I wanted to do something with my time and like something to promote literacy and like mental health and just intelligence. I think like, emotional intelligence, being able to read a book and step into the mind of the author, and like not only that, but learn the content of what they're talking about. So I started a book club, and the first one I did was What Doesn't Kill Us by Scott Carney, and all about like hermetic stress. And I actually did it with Adrian, who was one of the founders of Morozco, and I would do books every month. And then it was pretty easy to do it every month because it was during COVID and during my rehab. But then the next year was a little bit difficult because I was healthy playing for the Angels. So I maybe did one every 2 months. And then I signed with the Dodgers, and I did a book about the Lakers. And that was the last one I've done, because when you're not performing well, like fans, they don't want to see, like you're not supposed to be on social media. You're not supposed to do anything other than play the sport. So I just haven't really been involved. I'd like to pick it back up now, but just trying to find the right time.
The right time and balance for sure. I think, Rogan always says it because he's obviously got a huge platform where he's like, just don't look at the comments, bro. Just post and run. Don't look at the comments because there's a bunch of angry trolls in there that, like sometimes I'll have somebody say something mean about a clip or whatever we post online, and just kind of like, I could retaliate, like you said, it's not going to do anything. And just kind of like, well, how like sad and angry is that person in the life that they're getting a little bit of joy by like calling me a name or saying like, I can't take a guy with a man bun seriously. I'm like, oh, very original guy.
Can't wait
Thanks,
to hear about
bro.
what they think about us then.
two man buns here. Come here. We'll choke you out with these man buns. But yeah, I think, but it's cool too, because like it is social media and the pressure that comes with it and all of this stuff, it is an opportunity to share like a really empowering message. So I'm sure like a lot of the tips that you've picked up has come through this world and it podcast, like you said, and it's social media, and it's look what it's did to Paul and his ability to spread the animal-based message and things like that. So it's taking the good and trying to get rid of the bad, which is easier said than done.
I've more so sought out war against vegans right now, especially on social media. I would just post stuff about meat and animal-based stuff all the time, trying to like seek engagement with them, and like it's more so not necessarily the haters but the vegans now. I've had to deal with.
Oh yeah, they're a very angry bunch for the compassionate class that they define themselves as.
Give me a vegan and I'll show you a liar, because I'm like, well, you know how many small rodents are killed in the cultivation of avocados or almonds? Like
Yeah, and I know something that you're really passionate about is supporting like regenerative farms, grass-fed and finished, local kind of eating where possible, and if not possible, to get it from the places that are doing it right. Is that your? Well, I'm guessing it's both, but it's the healthiest food. But is it important to you to like vote with your dollar in that way too, and think about things like healing the land and sustainability and such?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know much about this topic at all, but from what I'm familiar with is like the monocrop agriculture is completely depleting our soil, and once we lose that, we're pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
But, I'm all about like regenerative farming, but it's also like farming the soil. Basically, you're not like raising cattle. You're just creating a cycle of the ecosystem of like just natural.
Yeah, we've had some amazing people on. Will Harris from White Oak Pastures, we had him on, such a legend, as real as they come, and really, really important, because like you said, once the soils are done and the food's gone, we're fucked. It doesn't matter about anything else. That's going to get out really quickly. And we truly believe here that something like regenerative grazing animals and using those in a rotational system to rehab the soil and, by facto give us the most nutrient dense, healthy foods on the planet is a pretty good way of doing it. So
yeah, I love White Oak Pastures. I actually use eat their meat, but also the body wash. There was I would go to Atlanta to work with this pitching coach for the last 3 months in the spring, and there's a grocery store called Nuts and Berries, and they had not only raw milk and raw cream, but they sold White Oak Pastures products like their tallow soap and candles and lotions, and I love. And then what is his name? Joel Saladino.
Saladin, yeah. That's awesome. That's a cool segue into a different topic, really, which is, I know you're thinking about EMFs because with the Faraday and the ground and sheets and things like that. I know you're thinking about food, obviously. What else are you thinking about in the environment? Like, are you filtering your air? Are you thinking about the clothing that you wear? Are you using scents and potions and lotions? Like, how are you trying to optimize holistically in that realm?
That's awesome. I actually have a pair of 100% cotton underwear on right now, the Nads brand.
Oh, shout out Nads. Yeah, they've been on the pod. They're good really guys. Cool.
Yeah. The fanny pack, I rock the fanny pack, and because it's a EMF blocking fanny pack as well, as I don't want my phone next to my nutsack.
Need a lot of stem cells to help if that's the case.
Yeah, I have the Jolie water filter. I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to get a reverse osmosis, alkaline water system in my house, but I've had 3 different plumbers come out. It's a pain in my ass to try to find where the water comes into my house. The main line next to the street, but nobody can seem to find where it comes into the house. So I'm still working on that. Having a new house is like having a baby.
Yeah.
I got the Faraday cage around the net, or sorry, a Faraday net around my bed. And I've like that. It's crazy the difference in sleep that I get. And I have like this. My mom gets pissed at me because I put my phone in a Faraday little fanny pack kind of thing. And she's like, "Oh, what if there's an emergency throughout the night?" It's just like the way she thinks. I'm like, "What? Why are you like even thinking about that?" Like, okay, like because you can't get any
service
calls. Yeah. I think what else? Yeah, no, I don't use any colognes. I'm not trying to block the natural pheromones, or like just the endocrine disruptors. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, the clothing. I'm getting better at just getting 100% organic cotton.
Yeah.
I just recently bought a pair of grounding loafers.
Yeah, right on.
I think what were the other things we were talking about?
You pretty much hit most of them there. The
I have an air purifier too. It's the Air IQ, big ass, ugly looking thing I put in the bedroom, but I don't really care. Yeah,
exactly. With your training these days, do you do like, are you on the birthright kick, and what do you do for training? Or because I guess like when you're on the pitching mound, you're wearing something like a cleat, right? To give you, so are you getting into that realm and trying to, because I know you're thinking a lot about functional movement and things like that.
My great toe mobility is not great. So I would love to do more barefoot training, but just it would not feel great on my joints. No. Maybe I'll adapt into like the Vibrams. But my training has definitely shifted. I used to have like this work ethic of like, got to move a lot of heavy weight around, and it's like created a lot of compression and tightness that I don't necessarily need. Like like pitchers, baseball players are rotational athletes. We need to be able to like rotate our spine, and I became obsessed with back squats back in the day, and I got super strong. But I think it's now kind of catching up to me in terms of my mobility.
Right.
So I'm more like try to move things fast, throw shit. I brought my water bags in the truck with me. Do different exercises with that to create like the water. It creates like instability. Yeah. Just trying to up my conditioning a little bit. My training is just adapted to like I'm not trying to like there's not going to be a lot of benefit on the field from going to like a 350-pound squatter to a 400-pound squatter. It's just more like an ego thing. Like when I retire, then I'm gonna get like really huge. But right now, I want to play baseball more than that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit of a biomechanics nerd, and I love, even though I can't throw for the life of me, but I love watching the super slow-mo baseball pitches, because the positions that they get their body into, like the external rotation of the arm, the opening of the hip, it's mind-blowing to me. And it makes a lot of sense that if you're training more classical gym movements, just like, forward sagittal plane and very like domestic, non-rotational, there's a point where that's probably helpful, get a bit stronger, but then there's definitely got to be a diminishing returns to that, right? And you want to be rotationally fast and grounded and integrated from the big toe to the tip of the head, because you're just like moving everything. So it's cool to hear you're taking that kind of approach to your training as well, because it would make sense to me that that's going to translate much better to what you want to do, which is pitch the baseball in the way you want to pitch it. What's your current ideal day in the life in terms of fueling that? So we've talked about the workout. What's the nutritional principles? Take us through like a classic day of eating, if you will, or day of, your routines with supplements and recovery and such.
Okay. So I'll wake up, do some sort of like mindfulness. Like I really am into the 4-7-8 breathing right now, because it kind of like, sometimes I'll wake up and I'll just feel a little overstimulated, I guess, in a way, but I'll still need my coffee. So
yeah, I feel it.
Just kind of grounds me, centers me, sets an intention for the day. Then I'll make my pour over, add the ghee, I'll put some collagen powder in it, and then I'll cold plunge, warm up in the sun. Then I'll do some conditioning, or I'll do some like I have a rowing machine, I have a fan bike in my garage, and I love I'll just do like a quick 4-minute like reverse Tabata on it, just to help facilitate. I also heard that like doing some light exercise after the cold plunge even boost your testosterone even more. Get some sunlight, depending on if the neighbors are, I can sense their presence, I'll just whip it out, get some sunlight. I mean, I think that's, I mean, you feel great afterwards. I'm not like sunning my butthole or anything, but I'm trying to even out the tan lines. And then just kind of, I'll go throw, do my weight training. Lunch, I'll get like this wild caught smoked salmon, which unfortunately, I guess like there's still some trace amount of plastics in it. From what we've found out, there's like,
I mean, nothing's perfect at this point, but the ocean is pretty polluted, unfortunately. But yeah, wild caught and, you know, those cold water fish like salmon, probably on the better side of choices for sure.
Yeah. And then I'll do drizzle with some olive oil. I don't even really like cooking with olive oil. I'll just take shots of it or use it as like a finisher. A little tamari, maybe like what is it, like yellowbird sriracha.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Some avocado. And I'm like obsessed with, I'm sure Paul is gonna like just be disappointed in me, but I'm obsessed with kimchi right now. Like I don't know, my body like craves it. I can't get enough of it. And then probably go to the driving range after that. And I mean, shout out to my chef Anthony at Chanko Nutrition, because like, I mean, he just crushes it. Like he'll make his own bone broth. He'll I mean, everything is super nutritious. He's super educated on all the, like everything. And then I'll have like one of his meals for dinner and have some tart cherry juice. I make a little tart cherry limeade before bed, some sparkling water, some squeezed lime, tart cherry juice. And then maybe I'll turn on the sauna, or take like a hot magnesium bath. And just try to get parasympathetic at that point. Maybe do some more meditation, do some reading. I'm really into like just breathing, or like reading about breathing now. So I'm reading The Oxygen Advantage. But it's like Patrick McCune.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I think also like when I was younger and I was doing these heavy ass workouts, like most of the time I would just get in the car and drive home. And I think like my body just created like this adaptation, like because my spine, my back is just so hypertrophied. I think like that had something to do with like, I think breathing, like with how your ribs are positioned and all that. So like I'm really trying to dive in with that. Like even like when I drove down, it was only 3 hours in my truck, and like I was just trying to change positions all the time. My back was just like, it more felt like kind of nervy. So I just think there's some like correlation between like the fascia and stress. So I think if like you more parasympathetic you can get, you kind of like help melt that, because it doesn't really feel like my muscles are tight. It just feels like very surface level kind of. So just trying to learn more about that. And then hit the sack and get ready to attack the day tomorrow.
Do it all again, man. What supplements are staples for you these days?
So I've been sponsored by Thor for the last 5 or 6 years. I love that brand. They've been really good to me. I'll take their magnesium before bed. I'll do some creatine throughout the day, fish oils, and I don't think they make ashwagandha, but I'll take ashwagandha before bed. And sometimes I'll take some, I don't really feel much of a difference, but the Tonkat LE.
Yeah, right. Trying to go like at that natural testosterone support route.
Yeah, like lower the sex hormone binding globulin, I guess, to get some more free testosterone.
I think the best one for that is what you said, whipping it out when the neighbors aren't around. That seems to really help. Or the red light. You've probably got a red light device, right?
I don't really have like the Juves or but I like there's one called the Nova Thor, which like, if I want to spend $130K I can get that. And there's Gary Brecka has one too, the Theralite 360, also another $130K. But
just a little drop in the bucket there.
Yeah. But I like him a lot. And it's like the system you can buy, like he's got the PEMF, but you can just go out and do grounding. Yeah. That's one thing when I lived in Manhattan Beach playing for the Dodgers, like my routine was pretty like wake up, go for a walk on the beach, prioritize early morning sunlight, get the circadian rhythm going, do some sort of breath work. I like Wim Hof breathing a lot. But it's a lot. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's intense.
stressful, it's intense, it's uncomfortable, and then like you're like, oh, I gotta do Wim Hof breath work, and then go into the cold plunge. I'm like, all right, like that's enough for the day.
Like stacking stress on
Yeah.
stress. Yeah. There's it's interesting, like you say that, because there's definitely a point of diminishing returns with those. Like stress is good to a point, and then it's not, and then it starts to pile on. So the cold plunge, like the reason we feel amazing afterwards for a long time is because you get this healthy hit of dopamine, but you also get the catecholamines and a little bit of cortisol and a little bit of adrenaline. And if you're riding that red line because you're doing that, and you're fasting every day, and you're not getting adequate sleep, and you're drinking way too much caffeine, and then you're wired, so you drink wine at night, and on and on and on it goes, then you just end up like kind of burning out. So it is that balance of like sympathetic and push it and get after it, and then like you keep saying, get back to that parasympathetic, magnesium and grounding and slowing down and reading. And I think that balance is really, really important. It helps because I think our culture, especially for athletes and stuff, it's just usually go bigger, harder, faster for longer. And you can only do that for so long before shit starts to break.
What I would love to add to my house at some point is like a float tank.
That'd be dope.
They're awesome. Those are awesome.
I love those. Yeah, those are awesome.
They're pretty readily available in California, so I would do those before bed. Sometimes like I would do those before bed, and I would it would almost like taking a nap before bed. So kind of like you float in there for an hour, you're like, oh shit, I'm kind of like recharged now.
Yeah.
So
it's like doing a magnesium bath too, right? Because you get all that salt too.
Yep.
And they're really cool. They're like, you want to figure some stuff out in life as well. Just lock yourself in the sensory deprivation chamber, turn off the music, close your eyes. And it's weird, right? Because you float on the water perfectly. So after a while, you start to be like, where's my body and where's the water? It's really meditative.
Yeah. There's it's definitely the mind-body separation.
Yeah.
Sure.
Very cool. All right, man. What's next for you then? I know you're currently in this phase of trying to just continually improve and reinvent. But if you were to kind of, channel that towards some, goals that you're after or some kind of like desired outcome, where do you think you're heading, and what would you hope to see for the future?
Well, I guess I have two paths I could go on. Like I still feel like I have a lot to give to the game of baseball. I'm not old by any sense, 31. Like you can still, I know a lot of older baseball players that don't take care of their bodies whatsoever, that are still competing at a super high level, that are 5 and 6 years older than I am, maybe even closer to like 40. But I think I'm going to continue to train, get right, just feel normal on the mound, not so restrictive mentally and physically. And hopefully I didn't have a big league job this year, so I won't have one next year, but I think there's a really good opportunity to go play in Japan and just kind of get away from it all. And I think they would treat me really well there, because I don't think they have very 6'7".
No, I don't think so.
Blonde guys over there. And I've just heard great things about the culture.
Yeah.
Super respectful. I heard you can go to the gas station and get the best sushi.
Amazing.
In the United States, comparatively. Or I could call it an early retirement and do more fun things like this and continue this journey on health and wellness and spreading a message and learning more about it, so I don't sound so half-ass all the time about this kind of information. So I'm leaning more towards the other route of continuing to play baseball. I'm still very passionate about it. Still love the game. I miss the game. I miss the camaraderie of being I still constantly am. There's phases of all right, I watched a lot of baseball, and then I was I'm over it, and then I'm oh, okay, I miss it. This is a part of me. So I'm every night I'm pretty much watching some sort of baseball game. So I definitely I want to go out on my own terms.
Right on.
I don't want to be I still I don't want to be how I never came back from this surgery the same, which is doesn't make any sense. I know most of the time people come back even better. They don't really regress. So, but it was I think I was up to 98 before I had my setback. So I think my body just went to a fight or flight, kind of stored it as trauma. So just trying to get it over that. Just continuing to practice the mindfulness, work on mind, body, spirit. And it was almost I lost the mind body connection. It was it just didn't feel right. So just continuing to work on that and just to feel again. And but if not, then I know that I have other passions in the world.
That's right. Yeah.
And I could just continue to live a radical, healthy lifestyle.
That's it, bro. Yeah, it sounds like, plan A and the competitive fire is still very much there, and you're stoking it and you're doing all the right things. And if it doesn't go to plan B is a pretty cool fallback, because I think, firstly, I would say you're very in tune and well-versed in this stuff, and more than 99% of people, and in a very sick world. We need more people out there spreading the message, and maybe we'll reactivate that Instagram account and get you doing your old influencer stick. We'll see, but it'll be very exciting to see what's in the works for you and to see what's coming. And yeah, I feel like there's a quiet confidence about you right now where you feel like you're in a good spot, and the build back is exciting. That build back better, and just all right, that's not the end. This isn't the end. It's just continuing. And I think I can get back to where I was, if not beyond that. That's really cool to see.
Right. The things I just love in the world right now are cold plunging, grass-fed ribeyes cooked in tallow, finished with some butter, sauna, just being as healthy as I possibly can and spending time with the people that matter.
Health is wealth, man. Health is wealth. That's it right there. Be rich in the currency of health and happiness and family and friends. And then the other stuff is just bonus. Pitching a 100-mile-an-hour fastball to a sold-out stadium. It's probably a pretty good feeling, I imagine.
It's pretty euphoric.
Yeah, I bet. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for coming out.
That was awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Where can people go to keep up with you? I know you're being a bit quiet on socials these days, but where can people go if they want to follow along and just see what you're up to?
Right now I'm kind of closed off to that world, but maybe I'll open it back up and get back into it and start spreading my passion.
Yeah, well, we'll at least try and tease you back on so we can share the podcast so more people can
I do
hear
have
it.
a Instagram. I think it might just end Sindegard, something like that.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next week. Peace out. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.